I've earned 30 plus certifications, and I'm here to guide you to success on your exam. Welcome to the Ultimate MS-102 Exam Masterclass. Are you ready to crack the MS-102 exam in one go? You're in the right place. In this session, we'll arm you with powerful insights and hand-picked questions that can make all the difference in your exam performance. We've scanned the web using intelligent crawlers to gather the most critical and high-impact questions, all compiled into one powerful PDF resource. You can download it from the link in the description. Not only will we explore these must-practice questions, but we'll also share real exam experiences and pro tips to give you that competitive edge. Let's dive into the key questions that could shape your success. Question 1. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. You configure a data loss prevention (DLP) policy. You discover that users are incorrectly marking content as false positive and bypassing the DLP policy. You need to prevent the users from bypassing the DLP policy. What should you configure? A. Actions. B. Incident reports. C. Exceptions. D. User overrides. Correct answer D. User overrides. Explanation. User overrides allow users to bypass DLP policy enforcement. Disabling this prevents false positives from being ignored. Question 2. Your company has 10,000 users who access all applications from an on-premises data center. You plan to create a Microsoft 365 subscription and to migrate data to the cloud. You plan to implement directory synchronization. User accounts and group accounts must sync to Azure AD successfully. You discover that several user accounts failed to sync to Azure AD. You need to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. What should you do? A. From Active Directory Administrative Center, search for all the users, and then modify the properties of the user accounts. B. Run adfix.exe, and then click Edit. C. From Windows PowerShell, run the start@sync cycle policy type delta command. D. Run adfix.exe, and then click Complete. Correct answer B. Run adfix.exe, and then click Edit. Explanation. The idfix tool helps detect and correct directory synchronization errors before syncing with Azure AD. Editing the errors resolves the issues quickly. Question 3. You have a Microsoft 365 E3 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 1. Which two Defender for Endpoint features are available to the subscription? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. A. Advanced hunting. B. Security reports. C. Digital certificate assessment. D. Device discovery. E. Attack surface reduction ASR. Correct answer B and E. Security reports. Attack surface reduction ASR. Explanation. Plan 1 includes security reports and attack surface reduction rules. Advanced hunting and certificate assessment are part of Plan 2. Question 4. You are reviewing alerts in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. How long are the alerts retained in the portal? A. 30 days. B. 60 days. C. 3 months. D. 6 months. E. 12 months. Correct answer D. 6 months. Explanation. Alerts in Microsoft 365 Defender are retained for up to 6 months by default for review and analysis. Question 5. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. From the Microsoft 365 Defender portal, you plan to export a detailed report of compromised users. What is the longest time range that can be included in the report? A. 1 day. B. 7 days. C. 30 days. D. 90 days. Correct answer A. 1 day. Explanation. Detailed compromised user reports can only include data from the last 1 day to ensure accurate, up-to-date insights. Question 6. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. You plan to implement Microsoft Purview Privileged Access Management. Which Microsoft Office 365 workloads support privileged access? A. Microsoft Exchange Online only. B. Microsoft Teams only. C. Microsoft Exchange Online and SharePoint Online only. D. Microsoft Teams and SharePoint Online only. E. Microsoft Teams, Exchange Online, and SharePoint Online. Correct answer A. Microsoft Exchange Online only. Explanation. Privileged Access Management currently supports only Microsoft Exchange Online for granular access control. Question 7. You have a Microsoft E5 subscription. You need to ensure that administrators who need to manage Microsoft Exchange Online are assigned the Exchange Administrator role for 5 hours at a time. What should you implement? A. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management PIM. B. A Conditional Access Policy. C. A Communication Compliance Policy. D. Azure AD Identity Protection. E. Groups that have dynamic membership. Correct answer A. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management PIM. Explanation. PIM allows time-bound role activation with approval workflows, ideal for temporary admin access like 5-hour sessions. Question 8. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that contains a user named User1. User1 requires admin access to perform the following tasks. Manage Microsoft Exchange Online settings. Create Microsoft 365 groups. You need to ensure that User1 only has admin access for 8 hours and requires approval before the role assignment takes place. What should you use? A. Azure AD Identity Protection. B. Microsoft Entra Verified ID. C. Conditional Access. D. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management PIM. Correct answer D. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management PIM. Explanation. PIM supports just-in-time role assignments and approval requirements for temporary administrative access. Question 9. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. You need to add additional onmicrosoft.com domains to the subscription. The additional domains must be assignable as email addresses for users. What is the maximum number of onmicrosoft.com domains the subscription can contain? A1, B2, C5, D10. Correct answer, C. 5. Explanation. A Microsoft 365 tenant supports up to 5 additional onmicrosoft.com domains that can be used for user email addresses. Question 10. Your company has a Microsoft 365 subscription. You need to identify all the users in the subscription who are licensed for Office 365 through a group membership. The solution must include the name of the group used to assign the license. What should you use? A. Active users in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. B. Reports in Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal. C. The licenses blade in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. D. Reports in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Correct answer, C. The licenses blade in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. Explanation. The licenses blade in Microsoft Entra shows license assignments, including those done via group-based licensing. Question 11. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You plan to create a data loss prevention (DLP) policy that will be applied to all available locations. Which conditions can you use in the DLP rules of the policy? A. Sensitive info types. B. Content search queries. C. Keywords. D. Sensitivity labels. Correct answer A. Sensitive info types. Explanation. DLP policies primarily use sensitive info types such as credit card numbers or health info to identify and protect data. Question 12. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that contains a Microsoft Entra tenant named contoso.com. The tenant includes a user named user1. You plan to use Microsoft Entra ID protection. You need to ensure that user 1 can review the list in Microsoft Entra ID protection of users flagged for risk. The solution must use the principle of least privilege. To which role should you add user 1? A. Security reader. B. Reports reader. C. Service administrator. D. User administrator. Correct answer A. Security reader. Explanation. The security reader role allows viewing of security-related information, including risky users, without granting higher privileges. Question 13. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription and use Microsoft Defender for Office 365. You need to recommend a solution to educate users on topics that relate to social engineering risks. The users must receive a weekly reminder to complete a learning task. What should you use in the Microsoft Defender portal? A. Learning Hub. B. Campaigns. C. Threat Tracker. D. Attack Simulation Training. Correct answer D. Attack Simulation Training. Explanation. Attack simulation training helps educate users about phishing and social engineering by simulating real threats with reminders. Question 14. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription and use Microsoft Defender for Office 365. You need to create a policy that will quarantine messages containing attachments that match .apk and .ax extensions. Which type of policy should you configure? A. Anti-malware. B. Anti-phishing. C. Safe attachments. D. Anti-spam. Correct answer A. Anti-malware. Explanation. Anti-malware policies allow you to block specific file types like .apk and .ax and quarantine such emails. Question 15. Your company has a Microsoft 365 subscription. You need to identify all the users in the subscription who are licensed for Office 365 through a group membership. The solution must include the name of the group used to assign the license. What should you use? A. Active users in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. B. Reports in Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal. C. The licenses blade in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. D. Reports in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Correct answer, C. The licenses blade in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. Explanation. The licenses blade in Microsoft Entra shows group-based license assignments, including the names of the assigning groups. Question 16. Your network contains an Active Directory forest named contoso.local. You purchase a Microsoft 365 subscription. You plan to move to Microsoft 365 and to implement a hybrid deployment solution for the next 12 months. You need to prepare for the planned move to Microsoft 365. What is the best action to perform before you implement directory synchronization? A. Purchase a third-party Endpoint 509 certificate. B. Create an external forest trust. C. Rename the Active Directory forest. D. Purchase a custom domain name. Correct answer D. Purchase a custom domain name. Explanation. A custom domain name is required to personalize user identities before setting up hybrid identity synchronization. Question 17. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. You configure a new Azure AD Enterprise application named App1. App1 requires that a user be assigned the report's reader role. Which type of group should you use to assign the report's reader role and to access App1? A. A Microsoft 365 group that has assigned membership. B. A Microsoft 365 group that has dynamic user membership. C. A security group that has assigned membership. D. A security group that has dynamic user membership. Correct answer, C. A security group that has assigned membership. Explanation. Role assignments for Azure AD applications are supported using security groups with assigned, static membership. Question 18. You have a new Microsoft 365 E5 tenant. You need to enable an alert policy that will be triggered when an elevation of Microsoft Exchange Online administrative privileges is detected. What should you do first? A. Enable auditing. B. Enable Microsoft 365 usage analytics. C. Create an insider risk management policy. D. Create a communication compliance policy. Correct answer A. Enable auditing. Explanation. Audit logging must be enabled for alert policies to detect actions like elevation of privileges. Question 19. Your network contains an on-premises Active Directory domain named contoso.com. The domain contains 1,000 Windows 10 devices. You perform a proof of concept (POC) deployment of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint for 10 test devices. During the onboarding process, you configure Microsoft Defender for endpoint-related data to be stored in the United States. You plan to onboard all the devices to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. You need to store the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint data in Europe. What should you do first? A. Delete the workspace. B. Create a workspace. C. Onboard a new device. D. Offboard the test devices. Correct answer D. Offboard the test devices. Explanation. Once data region is set during onboarding, it cannot be changed without offboarding the devices first. Question 20. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription that contains a user named User1. User1 exceeds the default daily limit of allowed email messages and is on the restricted entities list. You need to remove User1 from the restricted entities list. What should you use? A. The Exchange Admin Center. B. The Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal. C. The Microsoft 365 Admin Center. D. The Microsoft 365 Defender Portal. E. The Microsoft Entra Admin Center. Correct answer D. The Microsoft 365 Defender Portal. Explanation. The Microsoft 365 Defender Portal is used to manage restricted users and remove them from the restricted entities list. Question 21. Your company has a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. Users in the research department work with sensitive data. You need to prevent the research department users from accessing potentially unsafe websites by using hyperlinks embedded in email messages and documents. Users in other departments must not be restricted. What should you do? A. Create a data loss prevention (DLP) policy that has a content is shared condition. B. Modify the safe links policy global settings. C. Create a data loss prevention (DLP) policy that has a content contains condition. D. Create a new safe links policy. Correct answer D. Create a new safe links policy. Explanation. A new safe links policy scoped to a specific group, e.g., research, will enforce URL protection without affecting other users. Question 22. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You need to compare the current safe links configuration to the Microsoft recommended configurations. What should you use? A. Microsoft Purview. B. Azure AD Identity Protection. C. Microsoft Secure Score. D. The Configuration Analyzer. Correct answer D. The Configuration Analyzer. Explanation. The Configuration Analyzer helps compare security settings, like safe links, against Microsoft's best practices. Question 23. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that uses Microsoft Defender for Office 365. You need to ensure that users are prevented from opening or downloading malicious files from Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, or SharePoint Online. What should you do? A. Create a new anti-malware policy. B. Configure the Safe Links global settings. C. Create a new anti-phishing policy. D. Configure the Safe Attachments global settings. Correct answer D. Configure the Safe Attachments global settings. Explanation. Safe Attachments policies scan files in Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint for malware and prevent unsafe downloads. Question 24. You have a Microsoft 365 tenant. You plan to manage incidents in the tenant by using the Microsoft 365 Defender. Which Microsoft service source will appear on the incidents page of the Microsoft 365 Defender portal? A. Microsoft Sentinel. B. Microsoft Defender for Cloud. C. Azure Arc. D. Microsoft Defender for Identity. Correct answer D. Microsoft Defender for Identity. Explanation. Microsoft Defender for Identity integrates with Microsoft 365 Defender and contributes identity-related incidents. Question 25. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. You register two applications named App 1 and App 2 to Azure AD. You need to ensure that users who connect to App 1 require multi-factor authentication (MFA). MFA is required only for App 1. What should you do? A. From the Microsoft Enter Admin Center, create a conditional access policy. B. From the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, configure the modem authentication settings. C. From the Enterprise Applications blade of the Microsoft Enter Admin Center, configure the user's settings. D. From multi-factor authentication, configure the service settings. Correct answer A. From the Microsoft Enter Admin Center, create a conditional access policy. Explanation. Conditional access policies in Enter Admin Center allow app-specific MFA enforcement, like targeting only App 1. Question 26. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You plan to implement Microsoft Purview policies to meet the following requirements. Identify documents that are stored in Microsoft Teams and SharePoint that contain personally identifiable information, PI. Report on shared documents that contain PI. What should you create? A. A data loss prevention (DLP) policy. B. A retention policy. C. An alert policy. D. A Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps policy. Correct answer A. A data loss prevention (DLP) policy. Explanation. A DLP policy helps identify, monitor, and report PI content across Teams and SharePoint. Question 27. You have a Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. You plan to create a data loss prevention (DLP) policy that will be applied to all available locations. Which conditions can you use in the DLP rules of the policy? A. Sensitive info types. B. Content search queries. C. Keywords. D. Sensitivity labels. Correct answer A. Sensitive info types. Explanation. Sensitive info types are the primary condition used to detect protected information in DLP policies. Question 28. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription. You need to configure a compliance solution that meets the following requirements. Defines sensitive data based on existing data samples. Automatically prevents data that matches the samples from being shared externally in Microsoft SharePoint or email messages. Which two components should you configure? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. A. A trainable classifier. B. A sensitive info type. C. An insider risk policy. D. An adaptive policy scope. E. A data loss prevention (DLP) policy. Correct answer A and E. A trainable classifier. A data loss prevention (DLP) policy. Explanation. A trainable classifier defines sensitive data patterns. DLP policy prevents data leakage based on those patterns. Question 29. You have a Microsoft 365 subscription that contains a user named User1. User1 requires admin access to perform the following tasks. Manage Microsoft Exchange Online settings. Create Microsoft 365 groups. You need to ensure that User1 only has admin access for 8 hours and requires approval before the role assignment takes place. What should you use? A. Azure AD Identity Protection. B. Microsoft Entra Verified ID. C. Conditional Access. D. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management (PIM). Correct answer D. Azure AD Privileged Identity Management (PIM). Explanation. PIM enables temporary, approval-based role assignments for just-in-time access with defined duration. Question 30. Your network contains an Active Directory domain named adatum.com that is synced to Azure AD. The domain contains 100 user accounts. The city attribute for all the users is set to the city where the user resides. You need to modify the value of the city attribute to the 3-letter airport code of each city. What should you do? A. From Windows PowerShell on a domain controller, run the getAdUser and setAdUser complets. B. From Azure Cloud Shell, run the getAdUser and setAdUser complets. C. From Windows PowerShell on a domain controller, run the getMGuser and updateMGuser complets. D. From Azure Cloud Shell, run the getMGuser and updateMGuser complets. Correct answer A. From Windows PowerShell on a domain controller, run the getAdUser and setAdUser complets. Explanation. You should modify on-premises attributes using PowerShell on a domain controller with getAdUser and setAdUser. Please revise full PDF 2 to 3 times for 100% success. Check the description for the PDF download link and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for upcoming episodes. Thank you.